Another dull, lifeless night at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium ends in yet another defeat, this time a 1-0 loss at home to London rivals Chelsea. It's now one win in five since the international break, no goals in our last four halves of football, and just one goal from open play in the last five games. To put it simply, Tottenham are badly out of form since the international break, and the early optimism around Thomas Frank's appointment is starting to fade and fast. Now, this game Spurs needed to show fight and intensity, especially after sacrificing the Carabao Cup game for this game. And in the pre-match press conference, Thomas Frank said, "We need to come out flying and get the fans with us. There is so much on it against a very good Chelsea team. It has everything to be a top game that will hopefully put you on the edge of your seat."
Gosh.
Well, I mean, Jack, did you feel that energy? Were you on the edge of your seat or just sinking further into it out of frustration? Why do you think we were so flat today?
I, since I was the opposite of being on the edge of your seat, felt like you were wanting to just go back to bed. Really, was the
I mean,
type
we're
of
on the
game
edge
that
of your seat, but from frustration.
a frustration. I just wanted to go back to bed. Really, after that performance, I would say I felt like the energy was there from the players, but they never gave us anything really to get hopeful about or really to get behind because we were just so terrible in every aspect when it came
Yeah.
to trying to build up, trying to win the ball back, to just any sort of endeavor of any kind. Like there was, I think, huffing and puffing from the players, but really it's just no quality whatsoever. I know we've said that a lot of times this season, but really this game might have taken the cake for it. Just nothing of any sort to really be encouraged by or get behind. And that might have been one of the dullest games I've actually ever seen as a Spurs fan, and that's saying something from the times last season to the Conte era to the Stellini era to Ryan Mason ball and Jose ball, all of it. Even Andre Villas-Boas. When I was first becoming a Spurs fan, it might have actually be top three, top four most dull games I've ever watched from a Spurs perspective. And just lastly, as well, you would say that you would have taken a 0-0 at halftime despite how terrible we had played because it wasn't really like Chelsea had done that much really in the first half. But kind of as the game went on, they were very capable of scoring 3-4 past us. So I think that's what also makes it pretty damning is that maybe it would have been nice if Chelsea had also played terribly, but they kind of grew into the game and then they were by far the better team.
I mean, I just don't understand the performance. We made changes, so that we could keep players fresh for today's game, so that we could go and have a right go at them. And Thomas Frank even said that in his pre-match press conference. So I don't understand why we were so lifeless, spineless, predictable, flat, toothless, all the names you want to give. I don't understand how we ended up with this performance today. There's no excuse that some of these guys are tired. At the end of the day, some of them were rested so that we could put in this big energetic performance and go at Chelsea today. But somehow it didn't work. And you see the likes of Van de Ven walking off at the end, Jed Spence walking off at the end, sort of ignoring Thomas Frank. Maybe you're starting to see signs of frustration from some of the players to maybe towards, what they've been asked to do and all. And I think the biggest problem today was what was the plan in possession? We had no game plan. Every ball went, it went back to Vicario, or we try and play out, beat the press, end up passing straight back into trouble, it going back to Vicario and absolutely pumping it long. But when we were in possession, in order to go and break teams down and create and get up the pitch, you need players running forward. You need players running forward beyond the ball, making options for the player on the ball, and you just don't see that. So the big part of the problem to me today was there was no plan in possession today. It was all about sitting there, stifling Chelsea and hoping to win the game by a set piece. And at the end of the day, every single set piece went into Robert Sanchez's hands. And where I don't give this coaching team a free pass is he's got a set piece specialist. He's taken all the plaudits when he changed up a set piece earlier on in the season and Sarr scored off the back of it. So why was he sitting on the bench doing absolutely nothing today? Where is the instructions to try something different from the set piece if that's what you're relying on? So for me, we just weren't set up to go and win this game whatsoever. We paid Chelsea far too much respect in my regard, and we were hoping that we would be able to shithouse ourselves with a set piece 1-0 and come out of this and look genius. And it didn't pay off today. Absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. Nowhere near good enough. But I mean, Jack, it's now four halves without a goal. Are we becoming concerned about the lack of creativity and cutting edge? And is it a quality issue or a system issue?
Both, really. At first, I blamed it more on it being a quality issue, but now that we've gone so long, watching this, it's nothing's really changed or improved. I do feel like these players, even when they get lucky with a chance or an opportunity, they're still quite terrible. They just don't even know how to get a good shot on target or even just create any good moments when the opportunity does arise. But we're so rarely actually threatening on a consistent basis, it feels like under Thomas Frank. Like, you don't really ever feel like there are periods of the game when we're just all over the opposition and we're creating chance after chance that you just know a goal is going to go in. Hasn't really felt that way for a while, to be honest, under him. It does seem like we're just sort of reliant on set pieces and then we're just reliant on individual quality from certain players to just somehow shine through and then we can somehow get a goal in the back of the net. But I think it really is down to both, Dave. I think it's down to no real attacking endeavor from the manager or the players, and it's definitely both. I don't even know which one to blame more than the other, but they're both the problem: the quality as well as the
Yeah.
actual tactics themselves. I think it's a heavy, heavy handful of both.
I think you're absolutely spot on. It is a combination of both. Look, Richarlison, Johnson, Udeberg, Tell, just not good enough for what we need right now at this level. So there is a quality issue there. But at the same time, we've added Kudos, we've added Xavi Simmons, we've added Mawani. We don't get any of them really in any goal scoring positions. And at the end of the day, I can understand, giving them a free pass when it comes to Richarlison and Udeberg and Talon Johnson, because none of them have ever really been prolific anywhere else they've been. But some of the players we brought in, Mawani, Kudos, Xavi Simmons, they have been. They've been a difference maker in most clubs that they've played at. So I think there's fair questions to ask. Is the system getting the best out of these players? And, I revert back to Brennan Johnson is so limited going forward, but he banged in goals under Ange Postecoglou. The system got the best out of the player. Is Thomas Frank's system getting the best out of some of the options that we brought in to try and alleviate the attacking problems from last season? I'll argue no. So I do think it's a two-pronged problem, Jack. You're absolutely spot on. It just comes down to where do fans attribute is the biggest problem? Is it the system or is it the quality of players that he has to pick from? But guys, I'm not even going to argue over that. I'm going to let you
Yeah,
decide
just
upon that one in the comment section
I
below.
don't think it really matters, to be honest. I think both are just so terrible at the minute that to say one is more than the other, I don't think it really matters. I think they're both so accountable and both so responsible for it. Really.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely spot
Yeah,
on.
I don't
Absolutely
even
spot
care
on.
about arguing about it, just both are
Yeah,
terrible at
I
the
don't
minute.
at this point. But Jack, I mean, look, Frank's honeymoon period is well and truly over. Spurs are out of the Carabao Cup, struggling to create chances, dropping points at home for fun. And any successful season is built on consistent home form. It's a point that many people made under Ange Postecoglou last season. But I mean, Tottenham's record at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is frankly embarrassing. Played five, lost three, drawn one, only above the relegation zone on home results by goal difference. I mean, only Nottingham Forest, Wolves, and West Ham have been worse in their own backyard than Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, if Spurs genuinely want European football next season, let alone Champions League, I mean, that has to worry, or that has to absolutely change. So, I mean, Jack, how worried should we be about the direction this team is heading in?
I think it carried over from last season, just how terribly we were at home, but it did need to be quickly resolved under Frank, and it just hasn't been. I think there was something I might have heard or saw that said it might actually be the worst start Spurs have ever had at home, I think at this stage of the season, like in a long period of time or something like that. And that's just damning, really. It's just a crazy stat to look at because it's not like we've played incredible opposition at home either. We've played Wolves, Bournemouth, now Chelsea, obviously being the toughest of games, but it's not a huge sample size of games at home, but it's not like we've played incredible quality teams, on a consistent basis at home either. So it's just it really is worrying. And if you expect to finish inside even I mean, everyone's talking about top 4, top 5, but if you even expect to finish inside the top 8, you have to be a decent side at home. It's very worrying. It's very worrying. I think it's just down to fans now at this point. Seems like when they're showing up to Spurs games, they don't know what they're going to get. It doesn't seem like it's a fan base that's going into games confident that Spurs are going to be able to win this game. And I don't blame them because the record shows it. We aren't, winning games at home and we aren't putting in good performances. So they go into it a bit nervy and it seems to show on the pitch as well. So it's a worrying, worrying sign.
And like the thing is, I know fans are going to pivot to the atmosphere and say the atmosphere has been crap. And I know a lot of fans would sort of blame fans that are going to the stadium and that. But for me, I mean, Thomas Frank said it, I think, was it before the game, that in the interview that he has to do with Sky, that he was shown, the amazing atmosphere that was generated in the concourse before the game and stuff like that. And that he showed it to the players to try and sort of, get them inspired for today's game. But you go back to his pre-match press conference. There's so much in the pre-match build-up and at the start of the watch-along. It's one thing the fans generating the noise, which was there before the game. Thomas Frank admitted that. But it's another thing the team then have to go and give the fans something to get behind to keep that going. And very quickly that waned because of our approach. Fans were expecting Tottenham to go at Chelsea, like Thomas Frank said, would get you on the edge of your seat. But it never happened. So therefore, then, the players didn't really build off that. And I think they're at fault today for that. I think Thomas Frank is at fault for the way he approached today's game, for the atmosphere being piss poor. But most importantly, the club have to take the biggest slice of the reason why the atmosphere is piss poor at home. And you could argue the piss poor atmosphere is probably leading to us shelling results at home and stuff like that. But the reality is, the club put all the money into the stadium to build a massive wall, put acoustic panels around the top of the stadium to reverberate the noise back in and keep it sort of bouncing around the stadium. But all that money and all that thought into it around the design to generate a massive atmosphere, but then have gone no way to stretch with all these other fan groups to extend the olive branch when fan groups in years gone by have reached out to try and generate a better atmosphere at home. The club have blocked that at every single opportunity. So if you're looking for a problem to blame for the atmosphere at home, it starts with the club, and then it starts with the manager's approach today, and then the players. Because at the end of the day, the noise was there beforehand. Thomas Frank said it was up to the players to go and build off that, keep the fans with them, and they failed. So that's why the atmosphere is turning flat. And is it, does it stop maybe not stop the ability to come back in games? I think it certainly doesn't help. You look at today, we were still in the game despite how many chances Chelsea had. Vicario kept us in that game today. And you'd think maybe near the end, if the fans could get off their seat, cheer them on, it might just sort of will the ball towards the goal. That can happen at the home stadium. But at the end of the day, when you're seeing performances like that, you're at home, you're seeing no attack intent out your team, it's very, very hard to get behind it. And we've one big, massive problem at home, and it needs to be fixed. Because to Jack's point, if we want any sort of European football next season, it is going to rely usually on a strong, strong home form. So we have to change that very, very quickly. Again, Spurs fans, give us your thoughts on that in the comment section below. Jack, no Premier League team has made more mistakes leading directly to goals than Tottenham Hotspur this season. I mean, it's a damning stat, and it sums up the lack of concentration, composure, and confidence maybe running through the squad right now. And when your goalkeeper's your standout performer, which he has been the last couple of weeks, that tells its own story that there is a problem sort of brewing. I mean, but is that down to poor coaching, individual mistakes, or complete lack of confidence, with the amount of errors that we're making on the football pitch?
It was a bit of a thing last season too, though. Like you would imagine, there were like plenty of times when we were just making incredible mistakes that led to goals. We also were wide open defensively, but I did feel like a lot of the goals we conceded were down to some individual errors last year. I do think that's carried on to this season. I would attribute a lot of it, though. Yes, it's down to individual quality, like some of the giveaways that we end up having where players just dawdling on the ball far too long, someone, takes a really loose touch and leads to a goal, like Xavi Simmons, back pass to Van de Ven. Like, that's not coaching. That's just Xavi Simmons and Van de Ven just having an absolute mare
Yeah.
there. And then we've also seen some Barrack ball giveaways and things like that, in the past, season as well that are just not down to the coaching. It's down to the players. But I might go a bit far here and I might say some of it is also down to the tactics and just with how many times you see players seemingly have no idea who to play it to, who to pass it to, they're then kind of put under this pressure to, I guess, sort of create something out of nothing or sort of have to really, think outside the box. It seems like lots of times you're seeing players having to take extra touches on the ball because they just don't know who's open. They can't really see who to play it to. And if that's the case, I think you're always going to end up making some mistakes in front of your own goal, really. And I wonder if that's part of maybe the issue here is that plenty of these guys just are making boneheaded mistakes, but also maybe a bit tactical as well, where lots of times this last game, it felt like guys really didn't know who to play it to. And if that's the case, you are going to get picked, you are going to get hurt, and you are going to be forced into a mistake that easily can lead to a goal.
Yeah, look, I sort of agree with you. I think it's something we've seen in seasons gone by. It's something we've seen from Spurs players, for a long, long time, right? Individual errors leading to mistakes. So it's very hard to pinpoint on the manager. But when we constantly having to pass backwards because we don't have a lot of forward options when we're on the ball, then you gotta start looking at the system. You gotta start looking at the tactics, because that's why we're making a lot of mistakes, because there is no plan in possession. To your point, sometimes when you get your ball, when you receive that ball, sometimes managers can have it detailed down to the point where when you get that ball here, this is the only place it goes, and if he's not in front of his man to receive it, or he hasn't gone in behind, that's not your problem. It's on him. But you sort of see players just sort of making it up as they go along in possession. Now, there's always going to be that element that teams can technically set up against you and nullify what you were trying to do or what the game plan is. And that sometimes you do have to play off the fly. But this is every single week. This is every single game. And it's starting to become boring. And the more boring we become to watch and the more pragmatic we are, the more Spurs fans are going to start airing their frustrations towards the manager and stuff like that. So something has to change in that regard. But, again, I think it's sort of a two-pronged sort of problem. Again, um, honestly, it's just I, I'm just sick of being here every October, November. The new manager bounce comes in, we get off to a good start, things look promising, and then all of a sudden the wheels come off very, very quickly. I'm absolutely fed up with it. But again, Jack, I mean, let's one last talking point here. Let's talk about Guglielmo Vicario. Once again, Vicario was exceptional. 8 saves, including several point blank stops that kept Spurs, in the game, kept the scoreline respectable. You would imagine on another night Chelsea could have maybe scored 3 or 4 easily. But how sustainable is it for your goalkeeper to be the standout performer every single week? I mean, look, Vicario's the consistency he started to bring to his game. I mean, many fans will be absolutely delighted. But doesn't it also highlight that something fundamentally wrong with the system then, in front of him if he's starting to become your best player on a regular basis? If your centre backs are becoming your best players, your two holding midfielders are your best players, but they're also your most creative players, scoring your goals. Is there not a huge fundamental problem then with the system?
I think it's never a good sign usually when you ask someone who the man of the match was and they would say the goalkeeper, right? It's just maybe it's the harsh life of being a goalkeeper. You want to be given your praise, but whenever you're the best player on the pitch, it's usually not a good sign of the performance really or, how well you were playing. It just shows that you definitely were getting lucky and were potentially that's just relying on your goalkeeper to keep you in the game. So it's not a good sign, really. That's not that Vicario has been our best player in the last few weeks, really. And like you say there, you would say the center backs too have kind of just been our best performing players. It also says a lot about the creativity. It says a lot about the forward line. Like, when's the last time we could say that any of the forwards, even Mo Kudus, really, like, unfortunately, when's the last time we've said any of the forwards have been like the best players on the pitch or been the guys that have really been creating and leading the team? It's been usually just midfield masterclasses from Palinha or others and defenders and goalkeeper. Rarely this season have we said that a forward has been the man of the match, really. So that's a damning indictment of the players up front, but also a bit of the tactics as well.
No, 100%. I think the fact that all of our defensive, you even go to Paulinia, I would argue Bentacore, I think, has been decent enough this season as well. All of your defensive minded players have been your standout performance consistently over the course of this season. I just think something has to change going forward. But at the end of the day, I mean, look, I think that's phase 3, right? That's what Frank said. Phase 3 was coming in terms of the attacking play. He's come in here, he's implemented the defensive resilience and, the set pieces and stuff. And look, maybe I think maybe not doing anything around phase 3 at all from the off is maybe coming back to bite them now. So it'd be interesting to see what we can do moving forward because we do have a dark November ahead of us. I
Mhm.
mean, we've got Copenhagen midweek. Then I think we've got Manchester United at the weekend. Then you've got Arsenal away coming up, PSG away coming up, Fulham at home, and then Newcastle as well to open December away from home. So The next 4 or 5 fixtures are very, very tough. So Frank is gonna and this team are gonna have to find solutions and the answers very, very quickly and start producing something going forward if we have any hope of taking anything from these games moving forward. Because the one thing we used to be able to rely on, defensive resilience, that is now waning as well. So it's a long, long month ahead, a tough, tough month ahead. Spurs fans, buckle in, strap in. It's going to be a roller coaster. But most importantly, give us your thoughts, as you always do on these post-match reactions, in the comment section below. And I never ask for likes, so if you could also like this up as well, because we don't do that enough, that'd be a massive help. And we'll see you all back here Monday, preparing it for Tuesday. As always, come on, you Spurs.
See you next time, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.